In this video, I'm going to discuss with you how to write synopsis. Synopsis writing is a prerequisite for any kind of research, whether it is master's level or it is PhD level. And this will also be helpful for the researchers and the faculty who want to write some projects, because synopsis writing is in fact similar to the project writing, except for some extra things which are included in the projects like budgeting, etc. So let us see what are the steps you need to take to write down a good synopsis. I will discuss here how to write synopsis with low similarity index, which is checked in some sort of software. For example, this is Turnitin, and I'm sure you are well aware of this terminology of low similarity index and this software. And the similarity index of your synopsis should be less than 20% in most of the cases, although it may vary from in different institutions or in some special cases. And of course, there should not be any plagiarism involved in your synopsis, not only in the form of its writing, but also in the form of the research area you are working on. Now the question arises, why you want to write synopsis? Synopsis is plan of research which is written in a certain format for approval from some competent authority. So basically, it is your idea, and you discuss that what is the need of your project, and you give your justification, and also you write down what you want to do and how you would do that. So it means that you want to convince the specialists in your area that why you want to do this research, what is its importance, and how would you do it, and how are your objectives, and what will be the ultimate outcome, and your objectives, are they doable, and also do you have the capability to do that? So all sorts of questions are addressed in synopsis. Synopsis has different sections, and all these sections are arranged in a certain order. Although this format varies from one institution to another institution, but this is the general format and general order of the sections which is presented. Like it has a title, then abstract, introduction, then literature review, then materials and methods, and then literature cited. But you do not write the synopsis in this order, because of course you cannot finalize your title, or you cannot write the abstract before you write introduction and materials and methods. And this I will discuss in next part of my video, that how to write down and which section you should write down the first. Apart from these sections, there are some cover pages, and then there are some pages where your supervisory committee or scrutiny committee has to do signatures. So that also have to be included before and after the synopsis, before presenting. The order in which you write your synopsis is given here. It is recommended that you first write down literature review, and then materials and methods, followed by introduction, because when you finalize these three, then you can write down the abstract, which is composed of these three. And then you finalize your final title. Although you have proposed title already with you, as I mentioned in my previous video, how to conceive research idea and how to select the topic, but you finalize your synopsis title after you write down all these, and finally you give the literature cited, and after these, of course, you add the pages for signatures, etc. Why you want to write down literature review first? Because you want to review what is happening and what is the gap on which you want to write down your synopsis. And you have to maintain that. How would you do that? How would you fill that gap? And finally, although introduction will be presented first to the reader, but you will write down at the third place, because here you would have an idea that what is the gap and how to fill it, and then you can write down an impressive introduction. Now we will discuss all these sections one by one. So first, as I mentioned, is the writing literature review. But for literature review, and this I consider is the most important part. And here you will use this data organized in a table. And this table is composed of abstracts, research papers, and review articles, and their numbering and their references are given here, and what are the salient points. For details how to prepare this table, please watch my video. I have given the link over here on how to conceive research idea and how to select your topic. And many students ask how many review articles, research papers, or abstracts you want to incorporate in literature review. So it varies in different subjects and type of the research. But this is a general number which I give here, that you can use these numbers over here. Now that you have this data table with you, which you have made with reference to all the discussion I made. And for example, this is the resource you have. Some of your table contains data from abstracts, some from review articles, some from research papers, and these are the references. So you can apply, once again I'm telling you, you can apply this on any subject, on any type of research. This is the basic thing you want to do that. Now what you have to do is you have to make subheadings for your literature review. And how you make your subheadings? You have all this data table, all the data organized in this table, and you now it depends on you how you want to present your data from the literature. So you have to make subheadings out of this data. So first you make different subheadings, and then you will start writing on each subheading. As I mentioned earlier, that your synopsis should be of low similarity index and without plagiarism. So it should be conceptual writing in your own words, and it's just like a story writing. And how many pages of synopsis? Maybe 2 to 2.5 pages, A4 size with 1.5 spacing. Usually it is Times New Roman 12 font size. And these are the headings. So there is from the data table you have made. So, and you can also number these headings like this, 2.1, 2.2, because this literature review, when you present, it is usually after the introduction. So introduction may be 1.1 and so on, and this literature review with 2.1 and so on. And now this is the scholastic writing. Here comes. You write in your own words in the story form from the work of other researchers with references, and discuss their results. You have to discuss their results, and finally you have to give your conclusion or interpretation in 1 or 2 lines at the end of every heading. And you may also make subheadings if necessary within these headings. If you have a main heading over here, like for example, you have a main heading of coronavirus spread, then you may have subheading like coronavirus spread in Asian countries, and you may have another subheading in Europe, coronavirus spread in Europe. And similarly, the next heading may be vaccines in coronaviruses, and so on. So, but it all depends on your data table. While writing your literature review, do not give your data in text. Rather, you should discuss the trends. For example, if you want to give percentages of coronavirus spread in the world, you should not start writing down in paragraphs, this much percentage in this country, this much percentage in this country. Rather, you should give an overview and then discuss the trend, and finally give your conclusion. And it is very important to conclude every heading and subheading, and finally give a paragraph giving the gap in literature on the basis of which you want to do research. This gap you have to justify that there is a gap in the literature, and this will be the new thing you want to add to this area of research. And why you want to add that, you have to give the justification that why you want to fill that gap, how it would help. Second section you want to write is materials and methods. As I mentioned in my previous video, that there are two broad categories of research. One is the survey or observational or thematic type of research, and the other one is experimental, which may be applied or basic. Now it depends what type of research you want to do. On the basis of that, you have to build your materials and methods section. For materials and methods, you will again select your data from the data table, and you write in future tense with references that what you want to do and how would you do it. So there will be different headings you may give in the materials and methods, because it will be the third section generally. So you can write down 3.1, 3.2 and so on, where you to perform the study, whether it is observational or it is experimental. You should write down this. Then how would you do sampling? This also goes for both categories of the research, and you want to give the sampling method with the reference and the number and type and source of the samples and how to collect the samples, and you will give this with references, that which method would you follow for sampling. You have to make further subsections or subheadings of the materials and methods according to the objectives of the study and hypothesis built on the basis of the literature gap, and also as discussed in the how to conceive your research idea. You write down both in concise but in comprehensive way, like in concise form, in short form, but comprehensive means if someone want to do literature survey on it or literature search on it, he should find how you want to do that. But you do not give detailed protocols in the synopsis. You just give very brief methodology as given in research papers. But in research papers it is given in past tense, but here you will give it in future tense. And you must write in paragraphs rather than some people write it in point form 1, 2, 3. Do not write that in point form but in short paragraphs. And if there is some questionnaire, attaches it as an annexure to the materials and methods. And you must meet the basic essential requirements of any research and mention those in the synopsis. Like if you want to have, if there is some ethical considerations, like you're working on some animal samples or some human beings are involved, or some other social aspects for the social sciences research, it has to go to the ethical review committee, and you should mention in your synopsis. Similarly, if you are working on some, for example, transgenic or genetically modified organisms, then it must go through the institutional biosafety committee. And if you are working on some blood samples or some microorganisms, you have to go through for the approval of these committees, and you must mention in the materials and methods. And then you also have to mention how you would analyze your data by, for example, by MS Excel or some other software, and also which statistical model you want to use, if statistical model is applied, and how would you analyze your data statistically. So this with reference, this has to be given. So usually this materials and methods is 1 to 2 pages, or maybe 1 to 1.5 pages should be enough for the synopsis generally. But again, may vary a little with reference to different subjects. It's very important that you use standard units and abbreviations. Do not make your own abbreviations. And units, for example, SI system in biological or chemical uh, types of synopsis, and for abbreviations in social sciences and other subjects. Like this is the milligram, gram, K for kilo is small, L for liter is capital, is milliliters, so L is capital. This molar is small cap, neither it is small nor it is capital. Similarly, you must give a space between number and the unit, like 100 ml, so there is a one space, except for percentage. So percent, you write it down like that. And if you are using some animal, plants, or microorganisms names, you give the scientific names, then you italicize those. There is a long list of these which is given in different uh, in the different institutions have given their own list of these, so you may find out from there. But this is a, I have given you here the idea that how you should use. You can also use the help of the internet to get more detailed list of these abbreviations and all that. Now next section comes the introduction, which is very important because when the reviewer sees your synopsis, this introduction comes right after the abstract. Although you are writing it at the third place, but when you're presenting, it is before the other two sections. And this introduction is basically need for the project. You have to justify your project in the introduction to the reviewer that why he should accept your proposal. And it should not be very long. Even for PhD, it should be like 1.5 pages, 12 font size in with 1.5 line spacing. And of course, once again, you will use your data table to justify your statements. And here I have fractionated in that this introduction that you can write down different paragraphs. Like first paragraph should address the problem statement. It gives background to the project. Here some people start writing history. Do not write the history or the basic information here. Start to the point. Like for example, if you want to, if your synopsis is about what is the effect of temperature on coronavirus. In that situation, you do not have to write down the types of viruses, what are different sorts of environmental factors, what is the morphology of coronavirus. You don't have to write all that. You just start building your problem statement saying that coronavirus is a pandemic causing problem, and we have this consideration that temperature, high temperature might affect this virus. So you start with to the point, and you may give some references here. Then you give the possible solutions, which solutions are available, right, with the help of references. There may be different types of solutions to this problem you are addressing, that coronavirus may be killed with the help of temperature, or it may be killed with the help of humidity, or it may be killed with the help of some other factors. So you write down here in this paragraph. In the third paragraph, you give your solution to the problem with justification statement. And finally, you build your hypothesis here. Like for example, if you are concentrating more on high temperature, you may write down high temperature has negative effect on coronavirus. This may be your hypothesis. And remember, hypothesis is always a single statement, a very simple one, and it gives a certain sort of, this answer may be plus or minus, yes or no. So hypothesis, your testing hypothesis is high temperature has negative effect on coronavirus. So you will build your synopsis around that. Similarly, for social sciences people, like coronavirus has some psychological effect on the university faculty, on some teachers, or some other employees of the offices. So this may be the hypothesis, and you build the problem statement and different possible solutions and your solution based on this hypothesis. And finally, you give this a very simple statement. And then next you would write how you would execute the project. Here you would not mention the materials and methods, but you would write very briefly how would you execute your project with reference to the available resources, just in a few lines, in maybe in 2 to 3 lines. And then of course you will give detail in the methodology, but here you want to convince the reviewer that it is doable. And then ultimate outcome, write down the possible ultimate achievements of the project study that you are going to get out of this project. So it should be not very optimistic, uh, and neither it should be, uh, you may say, on the pessimistic side. It should be a balanced approach which is based on the reality. And finally, you give objectives of the study for the reviewer, that write down the objectives of the project study, or the project, or your study, and these objectives should be specific, and maybe one or two. Some people start writing down objectives, the whole of the materials and methods, that we will do this by this method, we will do this. These are not your objectives. You should write the objectives which are specific, what ultimately you want to do. So, and those should be one or two or maybe three in some cases. Now here comes the abstract of your synopsis. Of course, when reviewer is reading your synopsis, this will come first before the introduction. But now you have built your synopsis, you can write it in the best way. And it should be between 200 to 250 words. And the first 2 lines, now you will fractionate whole of your synopsis, and you will make a précis of your synopsis in the abstract. So first 2 lines should be like problem statement and need for the project. Next 2 lines may be what you want to do, and then brief methodology, 3 to 4 lines, that how would you do that. And the last line should be ultimate outcome which you are looking for from your project or your study. Now, after the abstract, you finalize your title, because this is the first thing which reviewer is going to see, and it will give an impact on the reviewer. It should be concise and but comprehensive, as I mentioned in the materials and methods as well. But this one, like, it should be like between 5 to 15 words, not very short, not very long, like between, or you can say in 50 to 100 characters. And you should avoid using these types of Roman numerals, abbreviations, especially non-standard abbreviations. Then there are some taxonomic hierarchy of species, chemical formulae, cryptic or complex names. Rather, you should use generic ones, like many vague terms, and you should not use dashes to separate the terms. Or rather, you can use hyphens that may be used to link the words. Similarly, you should avoid using semicolon, but colon may be used to make title in 2 parts if it is required. So you should avoid these kind of non-standard things, or very complicated or specific things. Rather, you should go for more generic ones. For example, here is one title: to study the effect of coronavirus on ozone layer, atmospheric gases and atmosphere, and its influence on air pollution and air quality. This is a very lengthy and it's not concise, and this will give a bad impression on the reviewer. On the other hand, if you narrow it down just to environmental effects of coronavirus, this is not comprehensive and it looks like a title of a book. So a better title may be effect of coronavirus outbreak on different factors related to air pollution. So this is one of the, but you can think of with reference to your research which one is better. But these are the basic guidelines. How to finalize your title should be concise and but comprehensive. Finally, you have to give references, uh, not only within the synopsis, throughout the synopsis, but also in the end, you give all the list of references in the form of literature cited. Here you have to follow the pattern recommended by your institution that may vary from one institution to other. Like some institutions may prefer APA style, some may prefer numbering, or some may prefer their own. But the good way to write down these references is to use some software like EndNote, which is licensed, but you can also use Mendeley, which is free up to a certain level. So these are two examples, but there are many other softwares available for incorporating references, and there are certain other tutorials that are available to how to use that. These are very simple ones. I usually prefer EndNote because you can make libraries of your data in a very short period of time, and once you make those libraries, you can use offline to incorporate your references in this. But many people prefer Mendeley, so it depends which you want to use. But never go for manual, because it will to putting in comma, full stop and all that manually is a lot of work which is useless these days, because you have so many good softwares available for that. And finally, after writing the whole synopsis, you have to organize that, uh, organize as per format given by the institution. Like if this is the order, you will write down in this order, and also you add the cover page and the signature pages, and finally you submit for the approval. So I am not mentioning here a particular type of format because it also varies a little, but this is the common things which are added over here. Good luck to you for your synopsis, and I hope now you can write a good synopsis with low similarity index and no plagiarism. And my next video will be on how to write a thesis. Thank you very much.